Can I just go to the issue of depreciation? And some of your Qantas executives, I think when Olivia Worth, it was a matter that she put to me, and I think to other members of Parliament, that the depreciation schedule for Qantas is much more punishing than other jurisdictions compared to Singapore and I think in Dubai. Is that a relevant factor? Because when you may be surprised to know this, but I'm on your side in relation to this, it seems to be a situation where Qantas is at a significant disadvantage with other carriers in respect of depreciation. Would you agree with that, Mr Evans?
Yeah, you're talking about tax depreciation here.
Tax
so I think Singapore tax depreciation is 3 years, whereas here we're 10 to 12 years. So
right. And given the evidence last week that the impact of depreciation non-cash charge of $800 to $900 million, which I think you defined was part of the terminal decline when you were clarifying the statements you made to Sarah Ferguson on the 7:30 report.
Sorry, Senator, just to explain that, what we said is that the routes at the time, the routes that we have now in international are cash flow positive, except for Perth, Singapore, which we've withdrawn. And then I think Gareth Evans took you through the details of why you can have a cash flow positive route but still be losing money because of the depreciation schedule that we have across them. And it's not tax depreciation. This is actually the depreciation of the assets. So
you're saying depreciation laws wouldn't make any difference in terms
not over that.
This is book depreciation. So book depreciation is accounting. We write the aircraft off over 20 years for accounting. Tax depreciation is for essentially your tax payable or your tax loss position.
So the depreciation we have to cover eventually, otherwise you can't replace the assets if you're not covering depreciation. And that's why we said it was in terminal decline, because it's not covering its depreciation.
And changing depreciation laws won't make any difference to, say, similar to Singapore's?
No, it helps us on the tax situation and gives us, it eliminates an advantage a competitor has internationally, but doesn't help us on our P&L on an annual basis.
Right.
And doesn't make any difference, apart from changing the tax profile, doesn't make any difference economically in terms of the ability to reinvest.
Does it make a difference in terms of how much you lease and how much you own in terms of aircraft?
Potentially, because obviously you're doing those lease versus buy calculations on an after-tax basis, so you would get a timing benefit if your tax depreciation was over a shorter period of time.
And can I just go to the issue? So the Qantas data book of 2013 indicates Jetstar leased 76% of their fleet and Qantas owned 83%. Is that one of the reasons why Qantas, compared to Jetstar, in your view, is struggling because of the mix of ownership versus leasing?
No, it's actually the other way around, Senator.
Sorry.
So your figures are correct, but the reason Jetstar leases the majority of its fleet is when Jetstar was set up, this was a new business. And if you look around the world at the way low-cost carriers evolve through their lives, the vast majority of them start with a large proportion of leased aircraft, which is what the decision was taken when Jetstar was set up in 2004, and then they roll into owned fleet as they develop and evolve, and which is exactly the situation Jetstar is going through, where we're bringing in NEO aircraft to replace the CO aircraft. But leased aircraft.
Could you take that on notice, please? Is that all right? And I just have a couple more questions. Qantas leases aircraft.
Correct.
Right. And does it sublease any aircraft used by any Jetstar entity? Is there any subleasing going on between the two?
There are some subleases between Qantas and with Jetstar in Asia.
Sure. And could you tell us, without knowing necessarily the figures, I'm not interested in any commercial in confidence figures, but can you, as a principle, can you state whether the sublease costs of those Jetstar aircraft, or those aircraft used by Jetstar, is that at a greater value than Qantas pays or at a lesser value?
Yeah, it's at a greater unit than Qantas pays.
Okay,
yeah.
So you make a profit on it.
It's a market rate, essentially, for Jetstar Asia, because Qantas leases the aircraft at the market rate for Qantas, because we're a large airline, we get a better market rate than a small airline, and we sublease them to Jetstar Asia at a market rate for Jetstar Asia, which is the lease for small. And
that market rate is at a higher value than you lease it for?
Yes.
You're talking about Jetstar Asia in Singapore.
Yes, sorry,
Singapore only.
This is just for Singapore.
What about any other entities?
No.
You do lease, or there's no leasing?
No, we don't lease to any other entities.
Okay. I'll put some questions on notice. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Gallagher, you've got a couple of questions, then we'll go to Senator D'Ascio.
Thanks, Chair. Mr Joyce, you made the point about the average age of the fleet. Can I just ask you, how many passengers does Jetstar carry? per annum?
Per annum, 27 million.
27
27 million.
Your total per annum?
27 million.
The group?
For the group.
It's, the 27 million includes the Asian entities
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
And then the group.
About 50 million.
So I'm talking about Jetstar. How many does Jetstar get
27 million.
out of a total of? For the
50 million.
50.
50. So that leaves us with 23 million people travelling on a fleet with an average age of 9.8 years, according to plane spotters. So you're 5.2 for Jetstar and your competitors are 4.7. Would that be about right?
That would be, but it does vary, as you know, Senator, because Qantas's fleet has got bookends, if you want to put it that way, because it's got some very old aircraft which we are replacing. So,
Well, Mr. Joyce, I accept entirely your
So
point
the
about new cars and new planes not needing servicing, but if you're going to run 22-year-old 747s and you're carrying millions of passengers a year, then I do think that, you know, questions about safety are legitimate, and you should be able to assure people that those aircraft are safe.
and we are assuring people that are safe. We have an amazing record. We're very proud of our record. We're very passionate about safety. Safety is the number one priority that I have, the management team has within the company, and we will never compromise on safety. But for some of the scaremongering that has been used last week to suggest in some way that maintenance that's been done offshore by Qantas is in some way less or high risk or has damaged safety in any way, when it's absolutely false and there's no way through.
I appreciate your statements in respect to that, and I think that
Thank
that's
you,
exactly what's required.
Thank you. And can I say, Senator, I mean, at the same time, you know, again, I come back to this. If you regard heavy maintenance being done in Australia as an important consideration for you when you pick an airline, then the only airline you should actually travel on is the Qantas Group, because Virgin does all of its heavy maintenance offshore. It does it in Singapore, it does it in New Zealand, and despite what was said last week, you know, a lot of the maintenance is done in Singapore. So if you regard that as important, then fly Qantas. But our experience is, and I think the experience of a lot of Australians that fly on foreign airlines, is that there's a lot of safe airlines that do maintenance offshore, and that the standard of these maintenance facilities are world class offshore, and that you can do heavy maintenance in Asia, in Europe, at the same quality as you can do them in Australia.
But the question remains that the bulk of Australian travelling public are on a fleet that is approximately twice as old as Virgin and Jetstar.
Well, no, Senator, because as I said, on Qantas, a lot of Qantas's fleet, the A330s, the 738s, are new aircraft. Qantas is taking a lot of new aircraft. The A380s are brand new. The A380s in capital expenditure, we've spent more on the A380s than we've spent, I think, on the Jetstar fleet for the Australian fleet. Because there's 12 aircraft that cost us over $300 million each. There's more capital that's gone into Qantas in total. And the older aircraft we are retiring. Part of the plan that we announced when we said we had to take $2 billion out of the organisation was all about taking the older 767s. So the 16 aircraft that are left all retire by early 2015. The 747s that are the older 747s that are left all retire by mid-16. They're the older aircraft in the fleet that give Qantas an average age that's above the rest, and those aircraft we've earmarked to retire.
Senator Dastyari.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. So, Mr. Joyce, I'm not an expert like so many of the other people here in some of these matters, so I'm probably going to need a bit of a more simplistic explanation than others. Just want to get my head around something you said on the 5th of March at the Australia-Israel Chamber of Commerce, and you said, I have great support from the board and the chairman. I talk to the chairman a lot. He's very supportive. The board's very supportive. And our shareholders are very supportive, and that was kind of about the whole situation that Qantas has kind of found itself in. Is that's a correct? That's your recollection?
Yes.
Okay. Explain this about. Obviously, the relationship between you and the chairman's already been covered well elsewhere. But when you say you have the support of the board, how does that get tested? Has there been a motion to the board recently, or is it?
No, it doesn't work that way, Senator. I think what you do is you have continuous dialogue, which we do with our boards. We have board meetings regularly. We have talked to the directors. We have board meetings, 11 a year scheduled, and
More like 7 a year scheduled, but as a matter of practice, it ends up more like 12 a year.
Okay, so one a month, roughly.
and we do have, so we have regular meetings with the board, and then you talk to the board about the strategy and the direction.
And then, so when you say you have the support of the board, is that a unanimous support?
It's a very strong support. Absolutely, I believe it's unanimous. All the directors have been supportive of the
And you've
strategy.
spoken to them all privately, and for privately giving you their individual unanimous support?
We've talked to the board continuously as we go on.
But I'm saying you personally, you've spoken to them all individually and therefore privately assured you of their support?
I haven't talked to them individually, Senator.
Okay, that's all right.
It doesn't work that way.
No,
in
that's fine,
companies
that's
as
fine.
well.
As I said,
Maybe works that way in politics, but certainly doesn't work that
You
way in
said-
corporate accounts.
You said, oh no, I assure you, unanimous support. You said that...
Senator Dastyari.
Have you spent any time on the
You said that our shareholders... No. The other point you talk about is that our shareholders are very supportive. I just want to get my head around. So the share price as of today for Qantas, someone there would know what it is, wouldn't they?
$1.09.
$1.09. And on the 1st of December 08, around the time you took over, it was $2.35, is that right?
Something like that, Senator, yes.
Okay, so that's 54%?
Yep.
Roughly, depending on... Well, I had $1.08, $1.09. So what... And the market cap, as you know, at the moment is about 2.4 billion-ish, and around the 1st of December 08, it was around 4.5 billion, roughly, give or take. How much of the responsibility, though, for the situation and the low share price and the loss of shareholder value do you think rests with management?
As I said, Senator, and I've answered this on a couple of occasions, the environment that we're operating in has been causing us the problem.
But how much? None? 20%, 50%?
No, Senator, let me answer the question. The environment that we operate in, as I said, we've seen since 2008, 2009, when you looked at those figures, 46% capacity being added to the Australian international market, where the worldwide average is 21%. It's like any economic, Senator. If you've got an oversupply of capacity and the demand can't cope with it, you're going to take a big hit.
Mr. Joyce, I find that hard to believe when Virgin's had an increase in its market cap of 266%. The Air New Zealand share price has had a 115% increase in the same period.
Senator, since 2009, Virgin's lost 400 million. Since 2000.
Oh, no, I'm asking a question about the market cap and about the share price.
But let me talk about the facts, Senator. So since 2009, Virgin has lost over 400 million. Tiger Airways has lost 250 million during that period of time. And actually, Qantas has made, until this year, $1.3 billion during that period.
Mr. Joyce,
so
I'm very conscious of the thing of time, and we can answer this stuff on notice.
But you've asked an important question. I think the performance of Qantas has outperformed our domestic competitors.
But
when you
you've
get
only
two
lost the
domestic
share price of 50%, and you've lost 50% of your market cap. So you're telling me its successful model is when you've lost 50% of market cap and 50% of share price?
Free, Sam.
That's what you're saying makes a successful model.
Senator, I'm saying that if you have a competitor, if you have a corner shop and a competitor down the road is willing to sell the same product and lose money associated with it, it doesn't matter how good your corner shop is, if that competitor is willing to lose 250 million in the case of Tiger and 400 million in the case of Virgin.
Mr. Joyce,
that's the dynamic that we're faced with.
If it was in the interest of shareholder value and in the interest of shareholder for you to resign, would you do so?
Senator, I have the support of our shareholders, and if I don't have the support of my shareholders, the board and the shareholders...
No, I'm not asking whether you have the support of the board. I'm asking you whether if you felt it was in the financial interest of the firm, would you resign?
Thing, Senator. The important thing is that
It is the important thing.
No, it is. It's the important thing is to have the support of the shareholders, and I continuously meet with our shareholders. We've met with our shareholders in the last few weeks, and they understand the dynamic. They spend more time on this, Senator, than this committee
Mr. Joyce, you don't answer
They're
my
the owners
question.
of this business. They decide who the management is. They decide who the board is.
He's not answering my question.
As he chooses. Senator Edwards, you have the call.
Yes, look, thank you for coming again, Groundhog Day.
Thanks,
I won't pursue the issues that Senator Xenophon has, because he covered those issues on the 17th of February, your comments in 2011, and your comments on the 22nd of June 2011, and put some context around that. Thank you, Mr. Evans.